So I'm Isabelle Schwarz and I work at the European Culture Foundation since 7 years now. And I'm responsible now for the strategic programs of the foundation, the grants and cultural policy development. And cultural policy development and advocacy has been very close to my heart since I joined the foundation, and the ECF has been very active in this field also since 8 years now, more specifically. And we have been, I think, instrumental also in bringing about the European agenda for culture in a globalizing world, together with others like Culture Action Europe, for example, the platform for putting culture higher on the European agenda.
Could you tell us more about the Agenda for Culture and eventually the role that the European Cultural Foundation played in the European Cultural Agenda and in this European Culture Forum?
Yes, so as I said, the foundation has always advocated for bringing culture higher on the agenda and then also translating it in some concrete measures and concrete strategies for culture in a global context. So we were extremely delighted when the European Agenda for Culture came about. And obviously the great challenges now related to the agenda is the translation, the implementation of the agenda, which requests the involvement and coordination, most importantly, also between the European institutions, the member states, the local regional authorities and civil society. So all these stakeholders in it will have to coordinate their efforts so that it delivers concrete results. In terms of policy innovation, because you asked the question, policy innovation multifolded, but I would say first of all that the dialogue and consultation of civil society is really embedded now in European policy making for culture on European level. So the existence of the so-called structured dialogue method that implies that the Commission gets back to civil society on certain issues, certain questions, that the recommendations comes from the practitioners who experience the difficulties in their daily work and so forth, and that they come up with concrete policy recommendations and are then heard by the European institutions is a policy innovation in the field of culture. It existed already in other policy areas like social affairs, for example, or education. And the second policy innovation obviously is the open method of coordination of the member states, which means that on European level they can associate their efforts in terms of coordination, in terms of developing strategies together. It is a non-binding method. There is no obligation to coordinate, but at least those who wish have the framework to exchange experiences, so-called best practice experiences in policy making. They can establish benchmarking mechanisms, yes, and they can set joint objectives between member states. And I think that's a big step forward.
Great. And I saw as well that in the forum there were several DGs, non-cultural DGs involved in the forum. And was this one of your expectations, or is this one of the important results of the forum, let's say?
Yeah, it's definitely one of the important prerequisites, I would say, also for the forum to work, because had we stayed only within our remit, only within the arts and culture world, obviously we cannot talk about mainstreaming culture. So here the presence of major representative of enlargement, external relations, development, research is extremely valuable. And of course now it depends again not only in terms of rhetorics, what is delivered at the forum, but how those who are present will actually engage themselves also for giving culture a more predominant place within their own Directorate Generals. And so we are very hopeful that those who were there will take on that role.
And talking about the future, is there any future steps or any big milestones that we have to wait for in terms of future actions after the European Culture Forum?
Well, yes, for sure. I mean, everybody will watch the November Council, the Council of Ministers, where usually at that time their conclusions are released, and that also normally feeds directly into policy making. So that means, for example, all the recommendations that were delivered by the three structured platform, the platform Access to Culture, platform for Intercultural Europe, and platform on the creative industries. They all did their homework and presented to the European Commission their policy recommendations, and it is now depending on how this will be taken up also on the Council level, together with the conclusions of the forum, as we had also quite substantial proposals that were made at the forum, and that we'll see how the ministers will take this up. This is one next step. Another next step that is awaited, obviously, is how this mainstreaming will translate in terms of programs and in terms of funding. The preparations for the next financial perspectives will start soon. And so again, we will have, as a civil society, also to play an active role there in terms of fueling further the discussion and providing also further arguments for more funds, more resources, more facilities also for culture on the European agenda.
Great, thanks a lot, Isabelle.
You're welcome.